nation, it is I, Tim.
There are some who call me Tim.
And this is Podcasting Down. I'm being joined by Doug. And as I mentioned before, Dan Saillant. Now, I would have said from X band, but he's from like 9 bands. so we're going to have to figure this out. This is one of them. This is Ice Giant. And it's Grendeval's Machine, icegiant.bandcamp.com. Did I get that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. Link will be in the description.
Bandcamp or icegiantband.bandcamp, one of those.
Perfect. We'll figure it out and we'll put it in there. So you are, correct me if I'm wrong, the bassist of Ice Giant, Perennial Quest, or do you play
Keys? But yes.
Keys? I knew it. Autumn's Ashes, Annihilus Mundi, and you've recently started Wailing Pines Productions. What did I miss?
That's all the stuff that is super active at the moment. There's a couple of other things that are cooking that are not public yet. There's a couple that I've been in the past that aren't active anymore, but those are the current ones, yes.
See, I'm not the only one who's in too many bands. The difference is this guy goes on tour all the time, and all these bands timely release stuff in a timely manner. So, so this is why I wanted to have you on, because I like the way my band's functions, Burning Shadows, Eyes and More, Recently Vacated Graves, Fade to Black, is that we don't practice that much and we can work independently, and that way, but that's not how it used to be. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we'd have to get together every week, and I was in a band for a while that had to get together twice a week, which is a huge chunk of time. So I want to find out how you do it, and go through each of these bands, because they're all different.
It's not a particularly fun answer because it's the exact same thing that you just said. Most of them don't practice pretty regularly.
You could have fooled me.
So the issue with Ice Giant is that 3 of us live in Boston and 1 of us lives in Southern Maryland. So we can't practice regularly due to that. But that is a semi-recent development, post-pandemic, because there was, pandemic diaspora type things.
Let me guess. So normally I'd guess the bassist is making things difficult, but I know that's not the case. Preventing practice, probably the drummer. Is it the drummer?
It is not. It is the second guitarist. Yeah, second lead guitarist. I don't know. The 2 guitarists, we have Liv and we have Eddie, and Eddie's the one that lives in Maryland. And they both do vocals and they both do leads and they both do rhythms. So calling one first and one second is a little bit of a stretch kind of thing, but
it's the growly one, yes.
Yes. The growly boy. Yeah, so that's Ice Giant. We only are able really to practice when we have shows coming, because then Eddie has to either come up here or we'll go to him or we'll meet somewhere else depending on where the show starts. And that's pretty much that. The only band that I'm in that does actually practice regularly is Perennial Quest, and we practice weekly. Sometimes bi-weekly if there's a show and we're stressed about it, or if we're premiering a new song or something like that. Next week is probably going to be one of those. We have a gig and we're playing not 1 but 2 new songs, and that's probably going to result in a weekend practice or something. We're usually a weeknight kind of band.
And Perennial Quest is 7 people, right?
Yes, it is.
An impressive.
Imagine how many times all of us have ever been in the same room. The number's probably even lower than you think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's an Eisenmore problem. But we're down to 6 people now. Well, unofficially, I think officially we're still 7 people.
You can struggle then, you have, 5 of them that can show up at any one time, and then one of them has a car breakdown and can't come, and then one of them just has undisclosed things, or one of them's got work, or, stuff like that. It always happens. But luckily also with that many people, you can still get stuff done. It's not wasted effort.
I see Perennial Quest toured last summer, and so you hit Raleigh. And then Atlanta, and then Richmond, and then you skipped right over Maryland. What the hell?
We tried. I've had so much difficulty booking in Maryland because a lot of with Perennial Quest, it's mainly our guitarist Andrew that does a lot of the booking. But that was right when I was starting to get into it. And I don't know what it was, but I just had so much difficulty booking in Maryland. I don't know. Don't know why. It's just one of those areas. Like sometimes, I don't know, maybe it's just that I don't really, well, no, I'm not from there. I'm from hundreds of miles away, so I don't really know what the scene is like. That's probably why.
Well, I get the impression that Boston's scene is more active as is Richmond, but I guess it depends how you want to look at it.
I wish it was more than it was. There's definitely no shortage of incredible musicians. I mean, we have Berkeley. It's just that it's just so expensive to operate and live up here that there's a lot of venues closing, especially in the wake of the pandemic. Like we had like a destination touring spot for years. I don't know if you've heard of Great Scott, but that has been gone since the early pandemic, and it's been in like development hell trying to build that one back up. What else closed? Wonder Bar closed.
I've heard of that one.
There used to be like 6 or 7 like in the city, and now there's 2.
All right, and then I did want to get a confirmation or rebuttal from you on Metal Archives, which we all know is the the most accurate information. All right,
Clearly.
so we'll go through each band. So Ice Giant it says early heavy / power metal, now symphonic melodic death metal, which is not what Angry Metal Guy called you.
Yeah, so that I think this is a rare circumstance where Metal Archives is correct. So our first album, rare, very rare, believe me. Ice Giant's first album, I was not in the band when this came out. It was in 2017. It was self-titled. We took it off most of the major streaming services, but you can still get it on Bandcamp, and it's on YouTube in a couple of places. It is rough, we'll say. It's a first album. It was recorded basically in a basement, so there's forgivable to an extent that it sounds kind of like that, but it's definitely in the US power metal kind of vein. And then the new stuff, Angry Metal Guy gave us a not super positive review, mainly because he could not figure out what genre we were, and he was like, is this power metal, is this death metal? We don't really know what this is. And
he wants to know, we've talked about, Doug and I have talked about this, he wants to know what box to judge you by.
Not fit in a box.
Right. And if you fit in 3 boxes, but also, I think he also said it's like symphonic progressive metal. That sounds like a box to me. I mean, I think it's pretty accurate. Okay, let's see. Next, Autumn's... No, Perennial Quest. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Power metal. Period.
Sure. We have been described, if you look through the reviews, the Metal Archives reviews on Perennial Quest, a lot of them are just like, yeah, if you like Dragon Force, you'll like this. And that is definitely true. We're Dragon Force Junior in a lot of ways. So whatever you'd call Dragon Force, I think you would probably call us that. Power metal. I usually call us power thrash, but either way.
Or would that be American power metal? Thrashy power metal?
And we're power metal, so sure.
I'm looking at this band photo, and it looks like there's 3 guitarists.
There are 3 guitarists. Is that the black and white one?
It is.
Standing together? Yeah. So that's the only one that we have since the newest lineup formed. I joined in 2021, I think. And I believe that's when that photo was taken.
That's it's I've always wanted to do 3 guitars, but I feel like it'd be hard to write for them to be interesting all the time. But you also you play keyboards, obviously. So how well utilized are those 3 guitarists? And which one would you get rid of? No. Well,
Davey, you're fired. It's most of the guitar work, our main guy, Andrew, he's the one in the aviators in that photo. Actually, we probably all have aviators in that photo.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so that is not helpful at all. So he's the one, he might have, actually, let me just look up the photo so I know who I'm looking at. Andrew is the main guy that writes a lot of the music, and he like Dragon Force is like one of his favorite bands, and he is a guitarist primarily, and he has this crazy ability to sorry, I'm multitasking now because I'm typing. Perennial Quest band name.
Believe me,
Quest.
Half the time I don't listen to what these guys say because I'm busy looking over here.
Okay, so Andrew is the one with the, well, I know it's orange, but it's black and white photo, so you don't know it's orange. Which one? He's the one in the Judas Priest shirt.
Got
with
it.
the dog tag around his neck. So that's Andrew. He's the main writer, and it's been like this project is kind of his brainchild. He has this crazy ability to write the 3 guitar parts such that there's like lead 1, lead 2, and rhythm, but that's not assigned to a particular player. They all rotate through that in any given song.
Oh, nice.
And the other guitarist who is on Andrew's, so it's Andrew, then next to him in the back is Tony, our singer, and then next to him is Sam, the other guitarist. He used to play keys in the band, and then he switched to guitar, and that was when I ended up joining.
All right, so how long until you switch to guitar also?
Well, as soon as I get good at guitar, which there's a lot of people you would probably rather hire than me, including most children and teenagers.
Well, let's talk about the composition of a band photo. You're supposed to have the singer miles in front of all these worthless musicians behind him. So why did you choose to buck that trend here?
Well, if you listen to the music, the vocals are like in there, and then we decide, you know what would be really fun with this great song with a great verse and a chorus if we had like 6 minutes of guitar solos. So there's we took a lot of photos that day. That photo's taken in our rehearsal space. We took a bunch of photos. That one was pretty nice. And also Tony's super tall. He's like a foot taller than the rest of us. So we were just like, hey, don't block the rest of us short people. Just go in the back of me.
That's smart. Hey Doug, which Perennial Quest did you check out? I assume it's the October 2020 release.
Actually, it was the demo, which is almost full length. And
it's a 6-track demo with a 9-minute song on there. That's my kind of demo.
That is a hotly debated topic within the band, whether or not we count that as an album or not. I am on the album end personally because I think that it's recorded pretty decently. It's clearly first album and it wasn't cut to a click as far as I'm aware. But it's like 45 minutes long or something like that.
Yeah, that's an album. So
I agree. I agree.
The lowest, the excuse you can use for any album is is it longer than Slayer's Rain and Blood, because that's like 27 minutes.
Oh yeah.
If it's shorter than that, it's definitely an EP. If it's longer than that, it's probably an album, I would say.
I agree. I'm going to clip this and I'm going to send it to Andrew and I'm going to tell him to go fuck himself.
That's right. Yeah. That's our guarantee. Oh, it says Boston's premier power metal of the most fast, shreddy, and epic proportions. That's what it says on Bandcamp. So I'll agree with that.
We wrote that.
All right, let's move on to Autumn's Ashes. That's according to Metal Archives, gothic /death/doom metal.
I believe that's accurate. I think Autumn's Ashes is a 2-person project primarily. It's me and my friend Rick Lowell, and he is the gothic doom guy of the band, and I believe that is the exact phrase that he has used to describe us repeatedly. So I don't know if that's he gave that to Metal Archives thing, or if that's a petitioned Metal Archives to give us that, and he's just been calling us that, or what. But Yeah, so that is an interesting band that has a lot of history. It started in 2017, 18, something like that. And it was initially Rick's brainchild because he was a drummer primarily for a bunch of different bands, Sorrow Seed, Black Soul Seraphim, like other like gothic doom metal bands, and he had all of these songs that he had written and didn't really know what to do with because either they didn't fit the other bands or they were just a little bit too long or they were like rejected from whatever album or something like that. So he had all these songs and he was like, man, what do I do with these songs? And then we met through a variety of circumstances involving one of my now inactive bands in Rhode Island. And we found out that we lived like 5 minutes apart at the time, which is crazy. And then he moved to another state. And then I also moved to another state. And now we live like 20 minutes apart again, which is crazy. You know, he had all these songs and was like, yo, you want to just like do it? And I was like, yeah, sure.
The Autumn's Ashes latest EP, Eugoogly, I mean, Eulogy, 31 minutes and 4 seconds. I think it might be an album.
I think I do generally call it an album. The only reason that I'm a little bit hesitant on that one is because there's only 3 songs on it that matter, and then there's 2 interludes. I don't count
the Doom. There's why you can call it Doom.
Yeah, there's a 6 minute, a 9.5 minute, and an 11.5 minute.
Nice.
And yeah.
You do everything in Annihilus Mundi, progressive death metal.
Yes. So that one is that started as a bedroom project for me when I went to college, because when I was in high school, I had a close group of friends and we had a band, and that band is technically still active, but I don't think it's on Metal Archives because we haven't put out like anything at all, and we haven't played in like 6 or 7 years at this point. But yeah, so is it active? I don't know. We'll see. We're writing something, so I don't know. Yeah, when I went to college, just the crowd that I was involved in was like completely and totally different. And there weren't really any, wacky death metal people that I could just, play around with. Little did I went to Boston College. I should have just taken a train to Berkeley and found a bunch of people, but I didn't have the foresight for that. So I sat down and I was like, well, I'm going to have to make death metal somehow. So I guess I'm going to buy a guitar and interface, and I'm going to, definitely legally acquire a bunch of recording software and, write a bunch of stuff. And lo and behold, I did.
Yeah. So, I was just noticing everything's like, released in 2020 because that's when everyone suddenly had time to finish their recordings. Mm-hmm. Were you on all these recordings? Well, obviously you're on Ghost of Humanity by Ice Giant, but
I'm actually not. Fun fact. That was recorded in 2019, believe it or not.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I was, Peter Dorena is the bass player on the album. You probably know him from Seven Spires primarily.
Okay.
And he's like just unbelievably talented.
Everything keeps coming back to Seven Spires, and it's very odd.
Yep.
Because for me, it just kind of came out of nowhere. But now I'm getting Seven Spires at every like 3 days.
Well, it's like the opposite here because like this was their scene initially because they all met at Berkeley and they were active in the Boston area for years and years and years. I played with them in like 2017 or 18 is my guess. And I had heard of them purely by reputation just because they were local to here for so long. And then I saw them play and I was like, whoa, these people are like crazy good. And then they started like releasing stuff. And then sure enough, everything they released, it was 2020 and then nothing happened. And now here they are nationally touring. They're in Europe, touring Europe right now.
Yeah. And I think they're going to tour with Lords of the Trident in Japan.
Yes, they are. Wow. Yeah. That's going to be absolutely awesome.
So, you're the latest Ice Giant. I assume Ice Giant is the main one, if not Ice Giant and Perennial Quest. Ice Giant's most recent release is the Spirit Crusher cover. So it's just a single It's out on the Spotify.
Yes. Yeah. We did not put that on Bandcamp just because I was a little bit worried about getting a cease and desist from like actually selling it. But we put it on Spotify and all that through DistroKid, and that gives you a cover license to stream it. So there's no worries there. I find it very difficult to believe that we would get a cease and desist for putting it on Bandcamp, but still, you know,
they're like, we want our 5 cents in royalties.
My dollar that will get 35% of it taken out by Bandcamp sales, unless it's Bandcamp Friday, which I don't know if that'll last, but
I really like the cover art.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because you see it little and you go, like, it immediately reminds you of Sound of Perseverance.
Exactly what I was going for. So I actually photoshopped that together. That's a bunch of stock images of a mountain that I chopped up in about 1,000 different ways and layered on top of each other and then colored red.
Last I checked your Spotify, that was the top track on there. So, which I find frustrating, because like people... I play in a Metallica tribute band that's like infinitely more successful with much less effort, because everyone knows Metallica. You know, it's like, oh, here's the same thing I already know. I'll check it out. You know, and it's just, I guess it's just human nature, but it's still frustrating when you're in original bands and you're real proud of your work.
I mean, we put it out knowing that was probably going to happen. It's, we like covers. We do covers all the time. We've done a couple of covers as a band, live, not recorded, but live. We've done a few. The reason that we did Spirit Crusher was multiple fold. Primarily, yes, because it's a song that pretty much everybody knows. It's also probably not super hotly debated that it's a death metal song, and if people are gonna still be confused by what genre that we are, then maybe that'll push people in a little certain direction. And then there was also the logistics side of things, where that was something that I produced. The album, I didn't play on, I didn't mix that, I didn't do any of the mastering. But the intent is we have a bunch of songs that we're releasing over the course of this year, and then for whatever the next album ends up being, our goal is to self-produce that. And I wanted something that I didn't have to do a ton of like actual writing on, so that then I could just do the orchestrations freely without having to worry about everything else. So the mix, the master, the orchestrations, and all of that, it was basically like a dry run for me to figure out how to do that in this band's context.
I treat one of my bands as the experimental thing like that. So that would be the zombie metal band RVG. That's where I'll do, like, I'll try new software. It's that's where I make all my mistakes, and whether you notice them or not, informs what I do on everything else.
That is primarily what Annihilus Mundi has been to me for many years. But that band, the result of me trying so many different things with Annihilus Mundi, like in like composition and software and all of that, resulted in me writing a 78-minute album that I have been trying to finish for, I think, like 4 years at this point. So I just had to be like, okay, stop with the experimentation in this band. You've already taken on too much. Let's do something else. And then we did.
You said 78 minutes? That sounds like 2 albums to me.
That sounds like 2 albums.
There it is. Doug, did you have anything you wanted to add before I ask about equipment and your eyes glaze over?
Yeah, maybe to both of you, and I'm sure the answer is it depends, but is an album turning into just batching out 3 years worth of music at this point, or 2 years? Yeah, exactly.
Well, for me, so I'm old, so I prefer albums in physical formats, so I meant to get it off my shelf, but I have Ice Giant CD, that was the only CD I bought that night. No offense to the other band on the tour.
Love you, Scorchbone, but yeah.
But yeah, like I listen to things in albums, but I've heard in multiple places it's better to release things piecemeal, because then you always have something to promote, because we're living. Oh, this is a perfect segue, actually. We're living in this, post-dystopian hellhole where you always have to be promoting something on social media. And I know you have gripes about that, so I'll let you answer, and then you can gripe about social media. And I totally agree with everything I think you're going to say.
Oh, yeah, because you see my Facebook, and you know that half of my Facebook is complaining about Facebook.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm the same way. I like listening to albums. I don't even listen to singles anymore. Like, I know if an album is coming out, if it's something that I'm really excited for, then I'll listen to the first single just as kind of like a palate warm up, I guess. And then I won't listen to any more, and then I'll wait for it to drop, and then I'll listen to the whole album. The recent John
I'm the exact same way. I've only listened to like 30 seconds of the new Judas Priest before it came out.
Yeah. I think that's exactly the case. Actually, I listened to Panic Attack, which is the first song, and I think it was the first single, and I was like, "Yep, this sounds great. I'm gonna just wait for the rest of it." And sure enough, the rest of it is great.
I wish I'd done that, because I'm sick of Panic Attack and Trial by Fire, even though they're great songs, and they don't feel like they're part of the album yet. I mean, there's the singles have always been a thing, right? And I could say metal's more album oriented than other genres, but yeah, releasing 4 songs over 6 months and sort of watching an album build itself in Apple Music is just really weird. For what I grew up with.
Yeah, that is definitely, that's a thing that's becoming very common. Sleep Token recently did that, and they released, I think, 6 singles off of that album, and it was just the first 6 tracks of the album. So they announced it in, I want to say, November. This would have been like a year and a half ago. Like, they announced it and they dropped the first song, and then a month and a half later they dropped the second one, and then so on and so on until there were 6 out, and then they dropped the whole thing. And recently Alluvial did that with their newest EP. It's a 4-track EP, and they released single, and then the 4th single was the EP release. It clearly works, because in the age of the social media algorithm, in which you always have to be feeding it for it to throw you any bones at all whatsoever, you got to keep releasing songs. And as we witnessed with, Ice Giant as a band witnessed with Spirit Crusher, you drop a song and then all of a sudden the numbers go, zip. The more you release stuff in an era, especially where, like, post-COVID, but where touring is all over the place, like every single week, you're getting tour announcement constantly.
It's too much. KK's Priest is playing tonight in Baltimore. Yeah. And just with all the tours coming through, and like real Judas Priest tickets costing $200 to see them in DC, because of resellers. I was like, I can't swing $50 to see KK's Priest, and I think Seven Spires, by the way.
And it's a disaster for like smaller bands touring too, because there's just so many big tours being announced at any given moment.
Yeah,
that, like,
but
every venue
how would you know about that?
Oh, trust me, I know about that. What do you think my last 6 months has been trying to book a couple things for a couple different bands, which is exactly what I'm doing in Wailing Pines Productions, by the way, booking shows.
Hey!
Just booking is hard. And it's necessary for bands to grow, because you have to play to introduce yourself to new audiences. The algorithm can only take you so far, because the algorithm can show you to as many people as possible, but it can't make them listen to you. The only time where you can, quote, make somebody listen to you, and I put make in quotes because you could play one note and everybody could walk out, but is live shows. And that's also where most of the money is made, because streaming doesn't pay anything. And Bandcamp digital sales, they're definitely helpful, but every Bandcamp Friday, what do you see? Hey, it's Bandcamp Friday. Hey, it's Bandcamp Friday. Hey, it's Bandcamp Friday. Hey, it's Bandcamp Friday from every single band on your feed, and everybody's trying to jump at the same audiences. So, Bandcamp Friday is useful, but it doesn't compare to like selling 6 shirts at a single show, you know, like, and then all of a sudden you're in the triple digits for the show and it's great. So shows are required, but also simultaneously dropping stuff regularly is, I think, required also in the modern age, because you need both the algorithm and the forced introduction at live shows.
Looks like you did a long weekend recently with Ice Giant.
We did, yes.
Up in so I've played 2 of these venues, O'Brien's and with recently vacated Graves, and I played the Kingsland with Eisenmore. The Sacred So the last time I played in Portland, Maine, it was the first show of the tour from Maryland. So we drove 12 hours. They paid us $11 because we had to split the take from the door, obviously $22, with the band that came from Bangor.
Oh, like
So,
what?
I'm
40-minute drive at most.
Exactly. So I'm hoping you had a better time in Portland than I did.
We had a better time than that, luckily. But it was a relatively small show. So that venue quote is actually a brewery. And
hell yes.
Yeah, I had never been to Portland, let alone played it until this weekend, which is odd.
Allagash is in Portland too, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that,
You
actually.
just show up and play there.
That would be sick.
Next time.
Next time. But yeah, they're an interesting spot, because we were it's primarily a hardcore venue, I think. So we had it was us and Elemist was touring with us, and Elemist, I don't know if you checked them out.
Is that what that says?
Yes, they are.
I'm unfamiliar.
Wacky. Yeah, they're a wacky band. They're from Connecticut, so I've known them for years, because they're all around the same scene. Everything in New England's an hour away from everything else in New England. So I've known them for years, and I listened to their stuff for years. It is wild, and it is Animorphs themed.
Yes.
So they have like an endorsement from the author, and they like trademarked the name of the band.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like crazy. They went like hard into the theme, and they have like a light show and like fog, and they weren't allowed to use foggers at most of the shows just because indoor venues and foggers and stuff like that. But like, they have like a light show, and they have like banners and all this super complicated playback and vocoder mics, and like it's wild stuff. It's like Cynic 2.0. So they were awesome. So it was us, them, a Motorhead type band, which is Apollyon, and then a straight up hardcore band. So it was so weird to see like, people moshing for the hardcore band, and then people standing like for Elemist, and then because I did not know what to make of it, and then people moshing like crazy for the Motorhead type band, and then people staring at us not knowing what to make of us. So like, it's not just angry metal guy that doesn't know what we are. It's okay. But yeah,
I don't think it's that hard to figure out.
I don't either, but apparently a bunch of people do. So I don't know. But yeah, that was a fun show. The brewery was really good. If you ever get up in that area, I would highly recommend. The beers are incredible. They only have 2. They're both lagers. It's a pale.
That sounds like my kind of place.
They call it pale and dark, and they're both crazy. So recommend.
Yeah, the Kingsland, that show destroyed our budget because we had to cross the bridge a couple times because we were coming from the west. So I'm hoping
$40 tolls. Yeah.
I'm hoping it was better for you. So the finances of these tours, like, how in the red are you when you get back?
It depends,
especially from your longer tour.
Yeah, so the longer it depends all on what the band needs, what we can get away with not having, and how much we have to put in for upfront. So for this past weekender, we just used our own cars because New York is like about a 4-ish hour drive from us, so we didn't need to put anything up front for that. When we toured last year, which is when we played together in September, it was we had to rent a car for that because it was all the way from Boston to Georgia, and we ended up sharing a lot of gear with Scorch Moon, and they I think they borrowed a trailer that was owned by somebody else. So they kept a lot of the big stuff in the trailer. And we just rented a minivan, and kept all of our personal stuff and like our guitars and heads and stuff like that in there. And that surprisingly was not all that expensive considering it was a week rental. I think it was like $800. And I think we just about broke even, maybe a little bit over. Which was nice. Perennial Quest, on the other hand, seven
people.
Band.
Yeah.
7 people band. So we had to rent a 15-seater Sprinter for our 5-day
Sounds
tour.
like you have 8 seats free,
Yep. We did indeed have 8 seats free because we also had 3 4x12s, all of our heads. We play in 3 different tunings live. So each of the 3 guitars had 3 guitars. And then we had my whole keys rig, and then we had the drum set, and then all of our personal bags. And I could dig up photos of it eventually, but like that was Tetrising that every night was crazy.
We also need 7 hours to set up.
Yeah. Well, I was actually shocked. We did really well with the setups on that tour because like you would look at our setup and think, oh my God, these people must take like 30 minutes for changeover. And we have before, and I was really mad about it. But somehow we got it down to like 10 minutes, like within the first like 2 days or so of that tour. Don't know how we did it, but we did it. So yay, credit. Clap. But that van rental was a lot of money, and we were very in the red from just the van rental alone. So that was a case where like we kind of had no choice. We probably could have rented 2 cheaper minivans and saved a bunch of money, but then we would have had to have 2 people driving. And in the case where we're driving overnight, then that doubles up the amount of people that don't get any sleep, which is, not great.
That's what Eisenmore did. We had 2 drivers, and we took a car and a minivan. And one of those cars was a Tesla, so he had to keep stopping.
Nice.
to charge. I went in the minivan.
I've always wondered I've always wondered if it is even possible to tour in an electric vehicle, just because, like in like probably like cities, there's probably a bunch of spots, like in like Boston, there's 1.5 million charging spots. But like what happens when you get into like the middle of like rural Arkansas or something like that? You're just fucked.
So we stayed in the Northeast, so it wasn't that big of a problem. But when we went from our show before the Kingsland was in Pittsburgh, which
6-hour drive.
Who set up this routing? Some idiot. So, but like the minivan, we took like I-76 and went straight across Pennsylvania. The Tesla had to go on 70, which they had to go out of their way because that's where the superchargers are. So it can be done. It just takes longer, and you have to plan for it. And once you're out of the Northeast, you're probably fucked.
I got a question for both you guys again, but Dan, starting with you. It seems to me, not having set up tours and only really in the context of what I know from Tim's bands, your path financially, or even to the people you play, is fairly tightly bound and out of your control by and large. What actual levers of influence do you have to either get people to your show or generate any revenue?
Let me step in. I don't know. All right, you go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know either, but the only way that I have really found that it consistently works is a ton more logistics works up front, where normally when booking, if you're like an independent band and you're deciding your own tour route, then you can do exactly that. You can decide where you want to go. We learned this the hard way with Perennial Quest. Don't schedule like 4 9-hour drives in a row. That was really dumb. We didn't know any better. We hadn't done it before. I don't know why we thought that was a good idea in the first place, but it's a lot of upfront logistics planning of figuring out, okay, how long do we want to drive on this particular day? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to hit? Where do we want to end up? And figuring out what the most convenient routing is. So the way that I usually do it is I'll pick cities. I'll check how far apart they are from each other. And if it's like 5-ish hours of a drive, then I'll say like that's reasonable. And then finding the venues is the next step. Which sometimes might be easy, sometimes might be hard. If you're in a huge place like New York, you can throw a rock and there's probably 75 venues in the arc of the rock. But if you're in a place like
stop throwing rocks in my venue.
I might knock down the terrible, delicate structure and we'll be one less venue. No, but there's if you're in a place like say Pittsburgh, for example, it's still a relatively large city, and there is definitely still a scene there, and there's a bunch of venues, but there's probably not as many as New York. So actually finding the venues is the next step, figuring out, okay, which ones book metal shows, which ones have in-house promoters, which ones hire people. And the only way that you can really leverage people being at the shows in scenes that you're not directly a part of is by hoping that the promoter does their job.
What incentive does the promoter have to do their job?
Usually they get a percentage of the entire show. Sometimes you might get a purely altruistic, beautiful person, like who's a good example of that? The main guy from why can't I remember? Promoter Head Entertainment. That's what I'm thinking of. They work out of Western Mass. It's a group of 3 or 4, and they're just like hardcore supporters of the scene. Sometimes you might get an altruist. Most of the time, they don't want to do a ton of work for no money, which is entirely valid. So they'll get anywhere from like 5 to 15% of the total gross of ticket sales.
And what are you getting? Is there a minimum plus some percentage of the cut if the show does well, or
that also depends
all
a lot.
Depends?
Yeah,
that depends mainly on if you have draw in the area. If it's an area that you've never been to, then you don't really have any established means of saying like, hey, we can guarantee X amount of people are going to come to the show. So you don't necessarily have the leverage to say, hey, we can guarantee this many at this ticket price. We can guarantee that amount of money. So that is the amount of money that you are guaranteed to pay us. But, when you get to a point of like Metallica or something, like huge band like that, where you're like, okay, that you're going to sell thousands and thousands of tickets, then, Metallica can say basically whatever they want. I'm sure their guarantee is like $1 million at least.
I know Fade to Black, the Metallica tribute, our guarantee is a fraction of that $1 million. I can guarantee that.
Sure it is.
For the Baltimore show that Ice Giant played, what they did was we got contacted. Hey, do you want to open the show? Basically. And the promoter that contacted us always puts on good shows. So immediately we were like, okay, it's going to be a good show. So it was easy to promote. But the problem is getting through to people who don't know that this promoter always puts on good shows. So we did our own promotion, not come see us. It was come see the show. So,
and that show had the additional hurdle of being on a Monday night.
Yeah. And it was surprisingly well attended for a Monday.
It was. I was actually very pleasantly surprised.
Do you have discretion over your merch pricing?
At this level, yes. So most venues that are operating at the level that we're playing at aren't going to take merch cuts. There's some people might disagree with this, but generally I think that price matching is not something that's required at smaller venues like this either. Like larger shows, where you might want to have like the opener bands like increase the price of their merch to match the headliners, but at a smaller level where we're playing like dives and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter all that much.
What are you selling shirts for now in Ice Giant? Because I'm asking because the unit cost has gone up over the years, but it seems like people are still trying to charge the same amount. But I'm worried it has to go up.
Yeah, it definitely. I think we're charging $35. I think,
but that's a full color.
It is, yeah. It's a full.
It's like a screen printed full color thing, right?
Yeah, we have two different designs. One is the album art, which is your lovely, beautiful background, and then we had another separate design commissioned based on the lyrics to the lovely, beautiful song that you played in the opening, Grand Evil's Machine. But that one I think has like 4 colors compared to the album art, which is like 40 or something insane like that. We were lucky to get a pretty good deal on screen printing for both designs, and the unit price was like shockingly low. I was expecting like $25 a shirt, and I think we ended up paying like 13 or something like that.
Wow. That's impressive. Was that 2-sided too?
The album art shirt is 1-sided, the other one is 2-sided, but it's the same colors on both sides.
Nice.
So I mean, we lucked out big time on that, I think it might be 30 because I know we wanted to make back roughly what we sold, make back twice roughly what we spent on each shirt, which is how we priced them. And I think that means they're 30, but I could be wrong. The Bandcamp I know has the accurate prices, whatever that is. But Perennial Quest is the exact same manufacturer. So I think we're priced about the same as my guess.
All right. It is Ice Giant Band. .bandcamp.com.
Okay. Glad we solved that mystery.
Oh, hell yes. You have bundles. Oh, shit. Hey, can I borrow some money, Doug? I have to get some of these.
Yeah. Just be careful. We don't have the album art shirts in large anymore. We sold out of those. We have to print more.
That is not a problem for me. What kind of gear are you using now? So are you primarily a bassist or keyboardist? I know you definitely as a bassist.
Yeah, definitely bass is my main thing. I've been playing technically I've been playing keys longer than bass, but I also had like a 9 or 10 year gap. Like I started, it was the first keys was the first instrument that I started playing, and I was in like elementary school. And then I got disinterested and I stopped in middle school, and I didn't pick it up again until after college.
See, I wish I was forced to learn piano.
It is one of the...
Like, I don't want to practice. Yeah. I want to, like, have the muscle memory already.
That is, like, I wouldn't say forced necessarily, but definitely my parents were like, hey, Dan, you should learn an instrument. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then they were like, no, we're putting you in piano lessons. And I am so grateful for that to this day. It's unbelievable how valuable it is, because now, like, anytime, even though I've been playing bass for many years longer than piano, anytime I'm trying to think of how to visualize a melody, I think of the piano keys first, just because it was that tactile first introduction to the instrument.
Your rig. So you are using, was it a 6-string bass? I'm trying to remember now.
Yes, it is.
What's your main daily driver? Oh, he's gonna go and get it. I love this.
Yeah, it would be this guy.
I remember it now.
Yeah. So this is relatively new model. It's the same, not exactly the same, but it's pretty close specs to what Dingwall does, where they have the multi-scale and the lowest string is a 37-inch. On a Dingwall, the top string is a 34-inch. On this one, it's a 35, so it's slightly less of a wide fan. But it doesn't, you don't really notice the difference when the 37 is there. I got this over a year and a half ago, I want to say, purely just because I wanted something with more even tension than... Fun fact, my other bass.
The other one's coming.
This is my this has been my main child for a long time.
That's just a normal 6-string. That's an Ibanez, yes.
You can get this at any guitar center, which is exactly what I did. It's a SR506 34-inch Bartolini's, standard type stuff. And I didn't want to replace that bass necessarily, but Ice Giant plays exclusively in E flat, and 7-string E flat specifically. So I needed the low B flat as well.
B flat, yes.
I wanted a bass that was able to like live in that tuning. And since it's down tuned a little bit, I figured, all right, why don't I try a multi-scale? Those are so popular nowadays. And I did. And sure enough, oh man, I really love that bass.
For your amp, do you have anything interesting in your signal chain? I only bring this up because my bass signal chain is like way more complicated than my guitar signal chain, because what I do is I split the signal. I started doing this on recordings, and then I finally do it live. I split it, I distort it, and then I blend it back together. So, and I do it all on a Helix, and then I plug it into whatever, you know. So do you have any interesting bass chains? Because that's where the most improvement can be made, I think.
Yes, definitely. So on that tour was the first time that I ever did this live, but I started using a Kemper, which is I tried the Helix. I had a Helix LT, and I had it for I think like 3 weeks, and I just could not get exactly what I wanted out of it. So I ended up exchanging it for a Kemper Stage, and it's just like, it is just an absolutely gorgeous piece of work. It's at my feet right now, but it's like Velcroed down, and there's all the wires, so I don't want to pull it out. But
I mean, I love the Helix. Not a sponsor, but I would love a Kemper. So
Kemper is, I'm not a Kemper sponsor either, but hey, give me money. I want to promote your thing. But yeah, the Kemper is, I started, my dream tone that I've been trying to emulate for years and years and years and years is Job for a Cowboy's Sun Eater album. It's the same bassist. He also plays in Nuclear Power Trio. Nick, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I think it's Shinzielos.
Oh man,
God tier, incredible bass player. And he just has this particular, he's like the only bassist that I'm aware of nowadays that like is fully a clean player. Like, he doesn't distort anything. He just, something about the way he plays, something about the gear chain that he's been using, it just sounds so good.
There's a lot of consonants right in a row in that guy's name.
Yes, there is. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but he's just so crazy good. And the nice thing about the Kemper is that it lets you emulate existing gear very easily. So sure enough, I go down the Google rabbit hole, and I'm like, okay, what does he use for this? What does he use for that? And I've been slowly kind of morphing my signal chain to try and copy basically what he's doing. And then sure enough, they just released a plugin, Shin's Bass, which is literally just his bass sampled. And I'm like, okay, well, just put me out of a job now. Fine. You don't need me anymore. Just replace me with a plugin. Yeah.
I only have like one more thing. Wailing Pines. Is that, are you working with anyone? Are you looking to work with anyone? Like, so you call it mixing, mastering, tracking, session performance, and booking services, which I lifted straight off your page. Yeah, that's all stuff you're doing for yourself already, right? Yes,
exactly.
So now you're for hire.
Yes, my goal with that as a quote company, it's not really a company yet, but I'm hoping to, first of all, make it a company, and second of all, do everything I'm already doing for other people also, and then hopefully make money off of it. Yeah, because it's audio production is something that like I love. I've been doing it since like 2015 or something like that. And I don't have a enormous resume yet, because
2015 sounds like recent, but it's 9 years.
Holy shit. 9 years ago. God, it's crazy. But I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
It's something that I love. It's something that I've been doing for like years and years and years, and I like to think that all of those years and years and years of practice shown pretty well through the Spirit Crusher cover. And I have a couple of other things that are dropping over the course of the next year or so. And I'll work with anybody really.
So I know you don't want to I know you don't want to announce things before they're ready to be announced, but how many of your bands should people follow for stuff coming up in the next year or so?
Definitely
what
Ice Giant.
percentage of them? Okay,
Definitely
Ice Giant.
Definitely Autumn's Ashes, probably 2 times over if I have my way. And I don't know about Perennial Quest this year, but next year definitely. And same thing with Annihilus Mundi. So I think over the course of the next 2 years, all of them.
So all of them.
All of
Got
them,
it.
yes. But definitely this year, Ice Giant, imminently. There is more stuff coming within the next month, I want to say.
Awesome. Well, I think that about wraps it up. So, follow Ice Giant. Oh man, I closed my list. Follow Ice Giant, Perennial Quest, Autumn's Ashes, and the Latin one.
Annihilus Mundi.
And if you need any sort of booking production services, that would be Wailing Pines. I'm 4 for 5. That's a B. That's a B. That's where I come from.
That's a pass.
B's get degrees. So do C's. So I don't think D's do. So
they do not.
It's a good thing I didn't miss 2 of them. So until next time, Metal Nation, all the links are in the description. Bug this guy. Get all his CDs, buy all his merch, and all all related projects. And that's all I got.